What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to this entry of the Creative Journal podcast. Today we have on the biggest guest we've ever had on the show. I'm going to tease you guys for a little bit, but you may or may not know him from social media. And it is the one and the only Mr. James Barnard. Um, Needless to say, I was super nervous for this conversation, but James is actually a pretty good guy. Surprisingly, no, just kidding. But we have a mutual friend, Josh Hall. Very grateful to Josh for introducing us, or else I probably would have gotten lost. And I'm sure James is very crowded inbox, but we ended up having a really good conversation, and I'm so excited to share him and all his awesome lessons and creativity with this audience because you guys are awesome too. But yeah, so in this episode, expect to learn James's career trajectory, balancing social media consumption with creation because he does a little bit of social media, tips for your workflow, how to create on demand, and how to be the best version of yourself. And James's career is his story. Everything is awesome. I was just really grateful to have the chance to be able to talk to him. He's just a well-versed designer that has been in the industry for a long time, worked in all mediums, knows the industry inside and out, and just to have any semblance of his time was so much appreciated. So thank you, James, for your time. And if you are creative, which you probably are if you're listening to this, and you use Illustrator a lot, James has a course which he was filming at the time of this interview that you guys should check out. It's called Turbocharge Your Logo Designs. It is on his website at barnard.co. That's barnard.co. Highly recommend. And so much content. I think there's 14 lessons in there, over an hour of footage, a free community, Illustrator files, everything, the whole 9 yards. Got great reviews from Made by James, Abby, Connick, just all the greats on social media. So I highly recommend that. And it was kind of cool to be able to see him behind the scenes as he was filming that course. He was taking a break. So yeah, without further ado, thank you again, James, for coming on. And I'm so excited to share this with you guys. So yeah, without further ado, please welcome to the Creative Journals. This is entry 028, the one, the only, James Barnard. James, welcome to the show, man. I'm super grateful to have you here. But
Thanks very much for having me. This is a welcome break. Actually, I'm right in the middle of editing a 2-week editing period of my course. So you're actually giving me a lovely distraction away from Premiere Pro right now. So I
yeah,
appreciate it.
I thank you, man. I've been keeping up with it on your Instagram stories. Looks like you're really grinding on it. So that's awesome to see. But
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's more work than I envisioned. I've actually taken something like 6 weeks off my client work just to do this because if I don't, I'll never get it done. It's something I've always wanted to do.
mhm.
But yeah, I've been trying to kind of document all the kind of behind the scenes stuff on my Instagram just to kind of keep it, fresh for me. So I've got a bit of a diary as I'm going through, so I can remember what I did and how I structured the script and how I did all my editing. And so
Mhm.
yeah, I'm just basically trying to keep a sort of daily vlog of it
Yeah,
and also kind of drives a little bit towards subscriptions, like early release kind of stuff. So I love
mhm.
it. I love a good bit of behind the scenes content.
Yeah. I Something that's really prevalent about your entire social media presence is you're okay with showing that kind of behind the scenes unsexy stuff, and I think that's what I know for me really that really builds your relatability because like you'll see, you struggle, you trip over your words. I know as someone that struggles talking to a camera and being nervous among other people, that's it really makes it easier to see someone that's in your position that does, big talks and has a big
Yeah.
following, is can goes through the same stuff. So
Well, I'm still to this day pretty terrible on camera, and I've been doing this for a couple of years now, like the whole TikTok, Instagram video thing. But I have to script my content. I totally write a script, read from it, cut those clips together to make it look like I'm actually, saying what I'm saying kind of succinctly. Otherwise, you'd just be listening to me going and
mhm.
stuttering through words, and it actually totally helps structure the videos. And without a script, it would be nowhere near as good. So yeah, I
Mhm.
do like to do the kind of the Instagram story stuff, just to kind of show what I'm doing day to day, give a little insight into what it's like to be
Mhm.
a freelancer. But yeah, most of the video content stuff is heavily scripted.
Mhm. That's the stuff I didn't realize when you're trying to grow a freelance business is so much of the marketing takes you away from, actually doing the thing. And
Mm,
I've heard you say before that, if you're scared, getting on camera is one of the best things you can do because, I talked to, Matt Vojak about this. He owns a creative studio in Columbus, but,
yeah,
he said, like, whatever scares you the most is probably what you need to do in your creative business, especially when you're doing, like, a lot of this stuff by yourself. And I'm sure we'll talk
yeah,
about your career a little bit, like how you it's kind of backwards from like traditional graphic design. Started out, did a little bit of
probably,
websites and stuff. But yeah, I
yeah.
wanna give you a chance to tell your story and like learn from it again because I've heard most of it, but I mean,
Hmm.
it's it's part of the inspiration for the show. Like a lot of younger people listen. Um, like I'd like to say I'm making the show like for people like myself, but we have a lot of designers on staff, people that want to see kind of these successful people in the creative industry. And there's so many different paths, like all the different creative directors we've talked to, stuff like that. There's so many different ways to kind of to fry an egg. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of it kind of begins with defining what success looks like for you. And I would certainly define you as successful because not to like toot your horn or anything, but I'm actually pretty stingy with compliments, so you might want to take that with a grain of salt.
Ah, thanks.
But you have a really specialized offering. Like you've managed to niche down pretty much, and you can
Hmm.
spend your day doing like. And I've heard you talk about how you have done things that you don't want to do in the past, and you're managed to get to a place where you can offer what you truly love doing. Going from 0 to 1 and building the brand from scratch. And if people want to come back to you for more work, you can kind of do that. So um,
Yeah.
I know I went along talking there, but you can just kind of like uh, tell your story again through that lens. Sorry.
Yeah, I feel like you did a pretty good job there, mate. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've done your homework. Appreciate it. Yeah, I came late to the party in the sort of grand scheme of things. I think I was like 25 years old when I started again as a graphic designer. I studied music and electronics at university. I wanted to be a record producer, and then I realized that it was long hours underground on my own all day. Um, and then when that kind of didn't happen for me, I just took like administrative roles in London. I worked for something like 4 years as just like a researcher in an office.
What
Before in
what
that
kind of
job,
sorry, not to cut you off. What kind of stuff were you
yeah,
researching? Was it anything, um
it was like it was a company, right? Okay, so let me try and remember this correctly. They were a PR database. Okay, so they essentially sold journalist contact details to the PR industry, so the PR industry could make press releases and pitch them to the right people. And it was my job to basically maintain that database. So a lot of it was just like researching, doing phone calls, checking that the contacts were up to date. It's just kind of office grunt work, really. But within that job, I rose quite quickly. I was good with computers, and I rose to this sort of a managerial position. I was managing a team of like 25 people as a 24, 25-year old. So reasonably successful as a sort of
Mhm.
an office grunt worker.
Yeah.
And I got a copy of Photoshop on my computer to build out an intranet for the company. It was such a young company; they didn't have anything kind of internally as they were growing for people to learn new names and learn who was inside the company. And
Mhm.
it was basically like I did enough HTML at my university degree to be able to create a WordPress website. So I made a company intranet, got a copy of Photoshop on my desktop machine to kind of compress images and make a few little pretty patterns for the backgrounds, and then realized this Photoshop stuff is incredible. I really enjoyed it. I picked it up really quickly. I learned what I could by myself, and it was like, this is so much fun. I started making websites on the side to sort of maybe start again as a designer. I thought, this is so much fun. I made 2 or 3 websites, one for a local chiropractor, one for a local interior designer, and I used those. I did them for free, made them in WordPress, used those as a portfolio piece to blag my first job as a junior digital designer for a magazine in London called Runner's World. And once I was in there, it was kind of lucky because I was big into jogging at the time. I was running marathons. It was my hobby of running, I think, got me the job because I was so passionate about the actual, the subject matter of the magazine. My design skills didn't really matter so much. So I got in, was doing like advertising work, making things like email newsletters, digital display adverts. I learned Flash. So I used to do like Flash animations and make those Flash MPUs and leaderboards and learn everything on the job, basically via my colleagues, and approached things kind of backwards. I learned print while I was there. So there were 2 or 3 magazine designers, obviously. So then I learned InDesign, picked that up. So that's fun. That's fun. Learned a bit about sort of like how to, the publishing behind magazines and print advertising, and then sidestepped into a new career. I went to Bauer Media. So I essentially sidestepped my way through the publishing industry all the way up to managing a small team of designers. I was like head of digital design for the marketing team for a national newspaper. In the end, that was my last full-time role, something like 8 years ago. I got so high that I was losing the design responsibilities and taking on more managerial sort of internal HR stuff, which I really didn't enjoy. Putting out fires all the time, dealing with all sorts of issues that weren't to do with the meat of graphic design, and I hated it. I left after 6 weeks in that last job, and I went freelance then to kind of get money coming in while I was looking for a new job. Then realized really quickly that freelance is the way for me, and it's been that way ever since. And you mentioned like the niching down into logo design. That has only really come in the last, say, 3 or 4 years. I was always doing it on the side, but actually focusing solely on logo design is quite a recent thing for me. And like I'm sure you've heard from our colleague and friend Josh Hall, like the actual niching down and sort of becoming an expert in a single area has totally worked for me. So yeah, it's been all guns blazing since I became a logo designer only.
Okay. Yeah, a couple of things about that. Because that's, to me, like that's what everyone wants, is that you have enough faith in what you enjoy doing, what you spend your time doing, what your ideal day looks like. And I wanted to ask you like what your perfect day in running your business looks like for you. Because I know you have a family, and I know there's no like such thing as a perfect day, but like if you could like, I don't know, Ali Abdaal is a YouTuber. He
No. Oh yes, I do. Yeah, I do.
yeah,
Yeah,
the Indian
he's the
guy.
course
Yeah,
creator, isn't he?
I love that guy. One day we're gonna get him on the show in like,
Nice.
I don't know, several years. We'll see. But he has this thing that's called an ideal week. So you go through and you make like an extra Google Calendar and you fill it out with like the entire week of, if you could, it's basically like a benchmark, like what you're trying to work towards, it's your ideal life, how you would spend it. Like he has like, okay, Tuesday, I want to be a business minded professional, someone who works out, gets up early, gets after, all the idealistic stuff that we say in our head, but we don't actually do. And then I'm also a family person. So for Tuesdays and Thursday nights, I'm going to block off, time to cook with, the wife and the kids and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that was a tangent, but that's what I wanted to ask you, where I was going with that is there anything you could do like going back to get to where you are now faster? Like what would you have changed? You think you took some unnecessary detours, or could you get to a place where you are now faster?
Interesting. I don't think, to be honest, I think it worked kind of perfectly because a colleague of mine, James Martin, Made by James, the famous logo designer, he is a big advocate for not niching down too early, and he's absolutely right. You need to be able to know what part of the industry you enjoy the most and you get the most out of. And for me, that is logo design, but it took a long time for me to realize that. And I only got there by dipping my toe in loads and loads of different areas. So I've done everything. I've done like digital display advertising, print advertising, bit of video editing, and obviously logo design and visual identity. But that logo design side of things only really I only niched down to that because I got to the point where I realized that it was, that was the part of the industry that I enjoyed the most. So my career is approaching like 15 years. Had I not done it that way, I probably wouldn't have realized what I enjoyed the most, and I might have niched down too early into something else and not realized that this is my strong suit. So I think it's gone pretty perfectly. I mean, I might not have spent so long. I think the only thing I would have done was just got into graphic design faster, because, like I said, I started late. I started at the age of 25. Had I started out of university, I would be much further ahead now. But it just took a while for me to realize what I wanted to do.
I think that's the case for a lot of people. I mean, it's I hear a lot of, there's this thing called milestone anxiety, and then it's really prevalent, and especially in industry where there's so many different directions you can go. Like, you don't know if you're spending your time doing the thing you want to do because, by definition, because you haven't done it before, you don't know
Mm,
if that's going to be the path. And you kind of have to go through
yeah,
the BS to find what you want to end up doing, for the rest of your life. But
yeah, it's a
it's
shame, isn't
it's
it?
comforting to hear at the same time that, you don't know right away. Something I wanted to ask you is, like, what's your criteria for, like, because you have been through the stuff that you didn't want to do at these different companies and stuff. What's your criteria for saying, I tried this? Is there a point where you kind of realize that this isn't for you, this isn't for you, and you want to, like, go in a different direction?
I mean, I've never really had that kind of problem before. My career has gone through like full-time work.
Mhm,
So I was kind of just told, did what I was told basically. And I I've picked up other things by just sort of learning myself. Usually it's immediate interest or not. If I don't find it interesting, I'll dump it pretty quickly.
mhm,
But I'm such a control freak, and I'm such a what's the word? I'm always wanting to learn, that I have such a hunger for learning new software and new tricks and tips. And as soon as I dive into something, I'll throw myself into it completely until it's finished. And I love little small projects like that, what kind of projects that you can do in a day or a couple of days. Like, for instance, during lockdown in the UK, I picked up woodworking, and I got so
mhm,
into it for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Bought all the stuff, got a chop saw and all of the electronics, and made a couple of things by watching YouTube tutorials,
right,
and was immediately like, I'm all right at this. I'm kind of, I can make things, but I know what I'm doing is kind of not great. The quality is terrible, and it's going to take me years and years to get better at this. So I was like,
mhm,
no, I'm done now.
yeah.
And also, I moved to Australia at that time and had to sell all my tools, so it kind of worked out perfectly. But yeah, but when a piece of tech comes along, or a software package opens up, and I dive into it, and it's easy to pick up, and my experience in the software means that I can run pretty quickly with it, then I'm that's me. I'm kind of I'm involved by that point. So yeah, I'm a logo designer, but I'm also, at the minute, sort of half of my time is doing content and making videos. And at the minute, because I'm doing this course, I'm diving into something like Premiere Pro, which is not my strongest suit,
Mhm,
but I'm absolutely loving getting faster in it and learning about how to structure videos and how to tell stories. And I adore that kind of thing. And that only comes from just the hunger of wanting to do better.
mhm. Yeah, and I think, yeah, that was powerful. I think, and ideally, I think we all hold, like, in our head, like, we're gonna have that moment where we're doing a project, we're doing something for work, or just doing anything. It's just gonna hit us on the head, like, oh yeah, this is what I want to be. It's gonna be that magic moment. But
Hmm.
and then people get, insecurity when they don't find that right away. I know I I certainly have. But I think in the end,
Yeah.
it's a lot of it kind of ends up being like a culmination of a lot of the things you enjoy. Like, for you, you do part of your work, your day to day isn't all just designing logos. It's not like you sit down and design for 8 hours a day. You include stuff like there's the social interaction of, getting with clients and getting
Hmm.
better at your communication skills, trying to uncover what their business is, and you get exposed to all these different businesses. And then on the side, you're editing, and then you do talks too. So I think you kind of have to have some sort of system for memorizing, remembering what you want and how you felt like in the moment when you were doing something.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's also like the creative process. You can't spend 8 hours a day designing logos. You'll just burn out, and your ideas sort of shrivel up. You have to take breaks. And for me, it's nice to have something else to sort of take my mind off it, whether that's writing a speech for an upcoming talk, or creating a piece of content. It just takes me away from the day-to-day grind, so that I can actually come back to my work later fresh and with fresh eyes, and maybe even sleep on it a couple of times.
Mhm.
And that just leads to better work. Just taking breaks all the time. Do an hour here, take 5 minutes there, come back for an hour, take another 5-10 minutes, go for a walk, come back. You
Mhm.
wouldn't believe how different your own work looks looking at it fresh the next day or after a break. You come back to your desk and you look at what you've done, like, what am I doing? Why was I wasting my time on this concept? You
Yeah.
dump it and you start onto something else. And it just leads to better work. So I like the distraction. I like having a few
Mhm.
different things to sort of dip my toe into while I'm working.
Mhm. What's kind of yeah, I totally get that. What's kind of your cue to say, like, "I need a break"? Like, is there something that kinda comes up when you you get, like, a little bit sorry,
Yeah.
I'm a really giggly person, and whenever someone starts laughing, I start, you don't wanna send me down there. So,
Okay.
but what's kinda your cue to when you realize, I need to take a break. I'm not looking at this with,
It's when you work on a single idea and you can't get it to work. That's the cue to step away from your desk and start again. It's usually like my process is a bit funny. I sketch, I go to the software, back to sketch, back to software, back to sketch. I'm really back and forth
okay,
like that. So I have a
interesting.
sketchbook in front of me. I'm terrible at drawing. If I find an idea and I know that the kind of the lines connect and the concept generally works, I'm in the software as fast as I can to check
Mhm,
whether the style has legs or not. And that's the point where I'll try a logo design out and I'll try a few different things. And then I'll know pretty quickly if it's not working or not. And that's the time to go, right, stop, go grab a coffee, go grab a glass of water, take a
mhm,
break, come back to it, back to the sketch pad, try something different. That seems to work for me, but it only works because I've got experience in the software and I'm really, really quick in Adobe Illustrator. So I can iterate quickly and make changes fast. But yeah, loads of breaks really helps. You wouldn't believe how much your work improves just by just stepping away frequently.
mhm. Yeah, that's nice to hear because I know I don't do a ton of logos. I like doing it, but so much of my self-talk a lot of the times is you feel like, and I don't know if this is the same for you, but I'm sure it's not all dandelions for you too, as good as it may look from the outside. But
Definitely not.
you you feel like you're getting nowhere and nowhere and nowhere, and then I kind of always hit this point. Like I just did this one. It's really awesome. Like so I promise I wasn't gonna talk about this, but I got this like really cool logo design from my old swim club. My coach
Right.
reached out to me and they're called Team Champ Swim. And I did a TC lockup and has a swimmer is the arm of the swimming like that. It's a C.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's all I'll say about
Nice.
that. But like the whole time I spent like
You can show
days
me
just
it.
like yeah, days just
Mm.
like on paper. And I'm like, I am getting freaking nowhere and I
Yeah.
did a little bit of back and forth like between the software and stuff, and um, I kind of hit that one moment where I was just like, okay, and then you go back at it and look at it again. But there was always just like a one moment for me where I kind of saw that. I know I really like my favorite one of yours is probably the Game Buzz one with um the
With the D
controller.
pad in the middle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I watched your talk with on Adobe Live. You talked about that one with the offset
Hmm.
interview.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
That one I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty badass." Like, props.
It's interesting. Like some designs, you get the idea really quickly, almost on the phone with the client in that first call. You have an idea and they go, "Okay, this is going to work." You already know. Some of them take weeks and weeks to pull out. I'll take on almost any logo design job if I'm honest. There's only a few things that I'll avoid, like religion and politics. I'll steer clear of those. But
Oh,
most of the time, I know that I'm going to be able to actually do this. And so I've built in with my clients a 2-week buffer for the turnaround on these jobs now. I might come up with the idea in a day and it'll be a surprise for them. It might come early, but having 2 weeks to work on a design just gives me the time to step back and sleep on it a few times, like we were saying before, taking breaks.
mhm,
Also, my process is a bit different now. I've incorporated a few things that kind of really help that brainstorming process. So, my colleague and friend Alan Peters, the fantastic logo designer Alan Peters, he's just launched a book called Logos That Last, and inside that book, there's a process called the brand noun process, where with the client, you get a set of pre-approved things that you're allowed to use in the design. So you're kind of getting your feedback in the discovery phase from the client, and the back and forth is happening there rather than at the design phase, because that's not their area of expertise. That's your area of expertise. So you don't really want them to be critiquing your design work, because that's, you know, your forte. Where you do want feedback is from the client in the briefing process on the ideas phase. And it also means that you're not wasting time on concepts that just aren't going to work for the client. Because I've been there so many times in the past where I would work a logo up in full with a concept, and the whole root idea was just wrong for the client. And had I just checked that, I could have saved days in, you know, designing a lovely presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So at the start of the process, yeah, I'll come up with a set of pre-approved things, like objects, nouns, that I'm allowed to use within this design, and then that way there's kind of no surprises for the client, and they're totally you know, the sign off happens a lot faster because they've already kind of pre-approved what's going to be used as the root idea.
Yeah. So I've heard you say before that you give them like a set of nouns, like 3 or 4 nouns, so they kind of have it in their head, like with the direction where this is going. And I like
Mhm.
that, because they can say like, I definitely don't want that. So you're not like on the wrong
Mhm.
page from the start. So that can be
Yeah.
really
It
helpful.
takes a bit longer at the start. It's like you have to spend a bit longer in the briefing phase, and you have to do your homework before you get on the call with the client, and generate your own ideas before you can't just expect the client to kind of come up with them themselves. You kind of have to work with them on it and go do a little bit of back and forth. So it takes a bit longer in discovery, but honestly, I say this all the time: an extra hour spent in discovery will save you a day in the design phase. It's
Mhm.
worth every moment of chatting with them beforehand to get those concepts pre-approved before you start designing.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard you say you take like a lot of time at the beginning. Like you'll talk for over an hour sometimes, like in the initial call.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
know there's a guy I met with in Columbus. His name's Jeremy Slagle. He's awesome. Like he really got me started down the whole wanting to do the podcast and talking to people. But he does mostly primarily logo design. Like you guys have a lot in common. But
Right.
he's less Australian and less facial hair. But unless hair, he doesn't have, he's bald too, so he doesn't have any hair. Um, he's gonna hate that I said that. But if you like, he does this thing where he'll take like some of like his clients, he'll take them to like Whole Foods for a day, and they'll just like we'll see how they hold packaging. They're doing a food product, like, and they'll just get coffee after coffee. And I was like, okay, part of me said like that's kind of a little bit kind of like over the line, not like over the line, but a bit excessive. But
Hmm.
he's adamant on we're gonna get off on the right foot. We're gonna build a relationship, and yeah, I mean that's one
Yeah.
that's definitely one take on it, but it's definitely
It's
hard to do
tricky
that
that it's tricky
virtually.
because I am in Australia. I'm British, by the way, not Australian. I just live here.
Right, 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 yeah.
My wife's Australian. That's how I got here. But yeah, being over here and having clients in places like the UK and America, I never get to meet my clients. I don't think I've met a single client in the last 3 years. It's all been done remotely. So
Wow.
that is tough. I have to spend that time on the phone, getting to know them a little bit and doing my research, having those conversations remotely. It would be a lot easier to go sit with someone in a coffee shop and have that one-to-one directly, and we could sit with a
Mhm,
sketch pad even and go through some ideas right there and then. That would be amazing, but it just can't happen these days. So
mhm,
unfortunately, I have to do that process remotely with them, but it works. The I have a big questionnaire that they fill out, and it has questions about their target market. And sometimes I ask a weird one, like if your brand was a celebrity, what celebrity would they be? And
sure.
like it's interesting answers. Sometimes it comes to nothing, but sometimes they'll come up with something really interesting, and that totally informs my decision about how they want to be perceived as a company. And those things really matter when it comes to making a logo,
Mhm,
especially when you're in an industry that is overcrowded with other has a lot of saturation in the market.
mhm,
Coming out with a concept for a logo can be quite difficult to kind of separate you from them. So having answers to questions like that really, really helps. I don't do it all the time. It's a bit cheesy, but if something's not going so well and we're kind of hitting a brick wall in the discovery phase, those kind of questions can really get the client to open up.
mhm. Yeah, I can imagine, that's a selective question, like, you probably wouldn't ask that to, like, a very like a medical nonprofit or something like that.
That's right.
It'd
That's
be
right.
cool to see
Yeah.
what they would say though. Like
I know, I
Beyonce.
know. I've had some interesting answers, honestly, like really, really weird ones. But it this really kind of it opens, it gives you a sort of a bit more of an insight into how that company wants to be perceived by the public, and that's a big part of the logo design is that the brand a brand is how someone feels about their company, and answers to questions like that just really help you kind of get a better picture.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. It's nice to see someone that is really it's clear that you love what you do, and I say that genuinely. But it's really clear to see that you put a lot of time into each project, and it's really refreshing, especially in an age where it's stuff like what you and I do is a lot less like valued. Not to put me and you on the same level, but the stuff that you do is a lot less valued. Um, Especially with the rise of like image generation and stuff like that, and
Mm,
um, a lot of people don't understand the concept of like a logo as an investment and something that really represents them. But I think it's something that once you experience, like you see something that someone put a lot of time into it, and then the presentation and getting that experience is something you can't get from Chat GPT. But
yeah, it is a scary time, isn't it, with this text-based, like prompt-based art and design.
mm,
Um, but selling the value of a good logo is something I've been doing for longer than AI's been around. There's
mm,
places like Fiverr and Upwork where you can get a logo for $5 or $10.
right,
And why would a client come to someone like me where it's going to cost you significantly more than that, when they can go to a place like Fiverr and get one for $5? And there is my job then is to sell the value of what that can do, what a good
mm,
logo can do for your business. So I just, I go through all of the list. Like, does your logo look trustworthy? Does it reflect your industry? Um, does it stand out as professional? Does it feel premium? Is it unique? That's the biggest question to ask. Is it, unique in the space? And on places like Fiverr, where plagiarism is a real thing, that's a big part of it. Is it timeless? And mainly, are you proud of it? That's the biggest one. Is that this logo is going to represent you in your business. And if you go out there under the yoke of a design that was knocked up in 5 minutes by someone on Fiverr or busted out with AI, are you really going to feel proud of that? And you're going to see it every day for the life of your business, and you're going to feel it, and it's going to hurt. So, a big part of it is making sure that me and my clients are both proud of the design, and I'm happy to have it out in the world. Otherwise, what's the point in all this?
yeah, yeah. It's almost like because I know what you mean about like. Have you ever heard of 99 Designs? It's kind of like a
Yeah,
Fiverr.
I
So
have.
yeah, people literally
Yeah,
hundreds of people competing just for a $50 logo, and it's like
yeah.
it's almost two sided because it's like
There are some clients
yeah, go
that
ahead.
are always going to go down that route, and there's nothing you can do for
Mhm,
people like that. They don't see the value in the logo, and they never will. And maybe their industry might not need it. It might be an industry where just they don't have a digital presence, but it's the clients that come to you and are actually they see the value in a brand that you've already kind of done half the work. If they're coming to you and you're attracting clients rather than you going out and trying to find them, then
mhm,
half the the job is already done. They're coming to you for your expertise and on the basis of your work.
mhm.
It's kind of then by that point you're not having to sell them too much on it. So it's different, isn't it? There's two types of client really: the people that just don't see any value in it, and the people that find you and will actually, be happy to be sort of guided through the process.
Yeah, and I've heard you say before that you position yourself as an expert through that's what you do through social media. That's a big part of
Mhm.
why people are coming to you because they see you as an expert, not just as someone who's teaching other graphic designers, but someone who's the teacher you're teaching by nature of doing that.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to talk to you about like your habits on social media and your posting and I something that a lot of myself and I know a lot of other people kind of struggle with is kind of regulating the balance between consumption and
Mm.
um, consumption
Yeah.
and posting. and putting your own stuff out there, making versus consuming. And I wondered if you had any kind of like safeguards in place.
I don't. I don't. It's
Right.
terrible, isn't it? You're right. Like half of I think something like 80% of my business comes from social media now. So it is a part of my day. It's a part of my life. It's such a massive lead generator for me that I have to take it seriously. But by being on social media, you are on these apps that are designed to take your attention, and I find it really hard to separate myself because so much of my life is on Instagram and TikTok. It's kind of terrible.
Mhm.
It's amazing because like I am putting out more than I consume, which is kind of good. You do have to be on there though. If you want to build any kind of community, you do need to be on the app and responding to
Yeah.
comments and chatting to people. I have a bit of a rule because I have children, and when my day finishes and it's dinner time, I do try and put that phone to the side so that I can be present at dinner.
Mhm.
Um, it's annoying. I usually post at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Sometimes I leave it a bit late, and I do need to be on the comments when it's coming in. So I do feel a bit terrible at dinner time if my phone's pinging away.
Mhm.
And but that kind of that gap at the end of the day between dinner and bed with the kids kind of lets me separate myself from social media a little bit. So I'm kind of forced in there. The terrible thing though is in Australia, the time difference means that most of my friends and family and places like the States will have been posting away at night. So when I wake up in the morning, my phone is always, jam packed with stuff that I've missed over the time difference, and it's a terrible way to wake up in the morning. I find myself waking up at 5:30 and like grabbing my phone and going through all this stuff, and I need to stop doing that. It's really bad. A colleague of mine, Abby Connick, I don't know if you've heard of her. She's
Oh my god, I love
prolific
that.
YouTuber and Instagrammer. She's recently been really sort of setting rules for herself, and I think she's taking one full day a week off from her phone,
Mm.
which is I find I wouldn't be able to do that right now. But I think that's the goal, is to kind of have enough separation. There was also a really great talk by Karen X at Adobe Max, one of the keynotes, and she has two phones. One for social media and one for doing her thing online. And she has a separate phone, which is kind of like a Kindle with no colors. It has access to the internet, but it's such a less vibrant, distracting device.
Mhm.
It's like a newspaper version of a phone, and so
Yeah,
she uses that sort of 3 or 4 days of the week rather than the
yeah.
glossy, shiny iPhone with all the lights and bells and whistles. So yeah,
Interesting.
it's
Yeah,
interesting. There really does need to be a some kind of safeguards put in place, especially like with my kids
yeah.
slowly learning. I've seen them on the iPad and how it can affect them and how it distracts from their attention, and it's terrible. So putting those guidelines in place is going to be so important.
Yeah, I appreciate you answering like that. I know, I mean, because I know it's not easy to talk about. I mean, not that it's hard to talk about, but um, it's something. It's so, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You it's something that we all go through. We're like it's a beast we're all up against, and I think sharing stuff like that can be really helpful. I didn't know that about Abby. Um, I really look
Mhm.
up to her. Like I watched her on YouTube years ago, and she really got me started on wanting to make this thing we do a career. But a couple things I've tried is I delete it from my phone. I don't have it on my phone. Instagram, TikTok, I don't have it on there. And I
Really?
try to stick to 3 uploads a week. Have you ever heard of Insist? It's a Chrome extension. It's
No, no.
INSSIST. Um, I just bought that like a week ago, but it's a Chrome extension and it mimics your phone, so you can connect and you can schedule out posts. So it
Oh, I
looks like,
see.
and you can turn it on grayscale too, but like it looks like a phone, like on the middle of your desktop,
Hmm.
and it can do everything because you can do the browser version of like social media apps, but they're usually trash
Right.
because you can't like the functionalities like with Instagram stories and replying to comments and stuff like that is not as it's not as accessible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've tried stuff like that.
I like it.
Evening summaries on your phone is a big one too for me. Not that I get
Right.
a ton of not that my inbox is flooded with people wanting to pay me money, but you can really moderate. So like morning and evening summaries, you can turn off notifications until a set time in the
Right. Yeah.
morning, so
That's
you won't
good.
get anything overnight. And then
Yeah. Instagram have started doing that now. The quiet mode,
yeah,
where they basically tell you from these hours we're going to stop sending you notifications.
Mhm.
A colleague of mine in the UK had a good idea. He's allowed to use his phone as much as he likes in his house, but when he walks in the door at the end of the day, he puts his phone on the table by the door, and he's not allowed to use it anywhere else in the house. If he wants to use his phone, he can, but he's got to go up to that spot and use his phone by the
Mhm.
door and then put it back. So if you want to use your phone, you've got to go physically to that spot in the house.
Mhm.
And obviously that totally stops you from doing it. There's
Yeah.
a little rule that him and his wife enforce. I think they have the equivalent of a swear jar. If you see you with your phone outside in your hand outside of that spot, you've got to put
Mhm.
a pound in the jar or something like that. But yeah, I think that's quite good. Like physically separating you from the device is another
Mhm.
great trick.
Yeah, I do. I nerd out. I have so many things in my life, like where you set these unnecessary rules yourself. Like you have to treat yourself like a child, literally. Like that's
Yeah.
what I mean, I'm still pretty. I like to think I'm pretty young, but like there's times where I would just have to make rules. Like, do you know James Clear, he's the author of
Yeah,
yeah,
I do.
Atomic Habits? He um he has so many stories like this, things he would do
Mm,
like from the social media thing, like he would give his assistant, he would delete
yeah.
social media during the week, give his assistant passwords, and then get back on after the weekend.
Keep himself
Um,
accountable.
yeah, Thomas Frank, he's a YouTuber. He does like Notion and engineering stuff. He's got like 8 million subscribers, but he's what he did was he wanted to start getting up earlier. So he set an automation because he knows how to code. He set an automation through Zapier to his Twitter account, and it was set at 6 a.m. It would go off if he didn't get on his phone and log off, and at 6 a.m. a tweet would go out if he didn't do it. So it's 6 a.m. You're reading this because I'm a lazy ass. I'm in bed sleeping. Here's my routing number and ACH to my bank account, and everyone can.
Oh, no. That's
So
good.
stuff like that, man. But I
Yeah.
know that was a little bit of a tangent, but um, yeah, I know. I just wanted to know because someone that's as successful as you that relies on the platform like that, and I'm just someone that's not nearly as into into the social media like you are. That I can't imagine it would be a lot harder for someone on your scale. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to hear that. But do you have for social media? Do you schedule out like posting or anything like that? Do you have any kind of strategy or calendars?
No, no, I don't. It's I basically try and stick to 3 posts a week if I can. I don't hold myself too tightly to that, but I think that's kind of a sustainable level of content to put out. I'm definitely not posting every day. The videos take me a couple of hours to put together. Like my process is pretty streamlined now. I've got it down, and I have a list of topics that I think of in the shower, and I'll write a list out, and I'll just sort of
Mhm.
tackle those as I go. But I'm too impatient to kind of schedule content. If I have a good video, I can't wait to post it. So I
Mhm.
usually make the video on the day that I post it and then send it straight out as soon as it's ready. Um, it's been quite tough the last couple of weeks because I've been working so hard on this Illustrator course that I've not had any content at all pre-prepared, and I've posted like once a week during this phase. And I think
Yeah.
yesterday I reposted something that I posted like 2 years ago because I just
Mhm.
literally had nothing to put out there. It does feel like those kind of apps kind of punish you for not being on there as much.
Mhm.
Um, but luckily, during this 2 week phase, just before I started working on this course, one of my videos hit 5 million views on Instagram. So that's kept things ticking along pretty well.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry too much about engagement when those kind of numbers are ticking off.
Mhm. Yeah, do you have because I know you're doing this editing thing right now, and that's a really cool thing that I think is awesome about careers, which you kind of mentioned at the beginning, but I forgot to bring it up, and now I'm remembering is that you have these little sprints where you can do these badass side projects. Like, okay, I'm in a position now where I can do this for a week, and I can
Hmm.
still control all these other areas of my business. But this is what I need to be spending my time on right now, and then really dive in deep on that. And it's nice to not be able to not not have to do the same thing every single day too, because
Yeah.
that's I
It's
think
that's taken a long time for me to carve that out. Like that's not something that's just happened overnight. Like
Mhm.
spent the last 3 years trying to make this kind of day to day life happen, and it is. I'm very lucky and I'm very fortunate. I've worked hard to get here, but obviously I'm trying to diversify my income streams at the minute. I do. My main business is the business of logo design.
Mhm.
But also now I'm sort of branching out into things like public speaking, digital products, a little bit of paid partnerships as well. Like, it's kind of when you do a paid partnership with someone and you make twice as much as you would for a logo project, which takes you a month to
Mhm.
complete. It's kind of a bit like, what am I doing here? I'm in the wrong
Mhm.
business. So yeah, no, it's nice to be able to kind of branch out into those things. But like I said, it's taken a long time to get here, and I'm only able to do that because I'm a freelancer and I can set my own schedule.
Mhm.
And I follow people like Chris Doe and James Martin, who are in the business of graphic design, and I've learned from them, and I've learned to charge a little bit more and how to charge a little bit more. And that has really helped me kind of build in that buffer to be able to work on my own sort of side projects. And yeah, like I say, I've been wanting to make a course for something like a year, just have never found the time. And I forced myself to go, right, I'm not booking any new projects until the new year to give me at least 6 weeks to do this, because it's huge. Like that's not like me at all. I like short projects that take a day or two to finish because the end is in sight. When the end is 6 weeks away and you're writing 12,000 word script, that's really difficult to kind of keep the
Mhm.
what's the word, keep the focus on something like that when
Mhm.
the end of the goal is so far away. Then there's so much to do. I find it really hard to not procrastinate and dip my toe
Yeah.
into other little things. So this has been really tough. And I was only able to do that because I'm a freelancer who can say, right, I'm not working on any client work until the new year.
Mhm.
So it's been kind of scary and kind of great at the same time. Yes, it's
Yeah,
weird.
that's awesome. That reminds me, I hate to bring up like James Clear again, but he was on the I heard him on the Tim Ferriss podcast, and he
Mhm.
mentioned something really similar, but like for writers. And I really felt this because like his whole career, he was a blogger, right? So he's like,
Mhm.
and he talks all about feedback loops. That's his big thing with habits is they have to, they have to be rewarded or discouraged, and that's
Yeah.
what keeps them in place. So like he's writing, he went from a blog writer, uploading every 3 days, every day, every 3 days, to a source online, to writing his first book, Atomic Habits, which took him almost 5 years to write. So he's like,
Right.
yeah, this could have been. He just stopped his, and he was still scraping out blogs in the background. But he said, yeah, this is, if I look at my life before and after, that period was necessary. When you're going through it, when you're going through the bullshit
Yeah.
of the whole day can go by of grinding, and you feel like it's just as big of a mess as you started because no one's giving you feedback and you're kind of doing it
Yeah.
yourself, and the payoff is
Need a
so
bit of
far away.
perspective. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's really tough. That's it, isn't it? It's the lack of feedback as you're going is one of the hardest things to kind of push through. And I got approached to write a book last year, and
Oh shit.
we sort of toyed with some ideas, and ultimately it's been put on pause because I can't find the promise of the book, like what's the sort of selling point of it. But
Mhm.
B, it's like that project is a 6 month project, and with no kind of a financial reward or kind of the dopamine hit of launching something and it doing well, that won't
Mhm.
come for such a long time. It's a huge undertaking. So I'm really impressed by people like James Martin and Alan Peters who've just launched these books about logo design, and how
Mhm.
long that took and how much effort that took to do.
Yeah.
But now that they're out there, those guys are kind of so established, and that's the reward of it comes much later. So yeah, in our world of sort of short attention spans and dopamine hits of posting content on social media,
Mhm.
projects like that are really they're so different. And this course has actually been like a huge thing for me. Like 6 weeks isn't as long as sort of writing a book, but it's
Mhm.
felt like this is an actual project, and I've been really enjoying kind of diving into this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, I having projects like that, there's points where because I get into my own head a lot, and I think, what is like the trajectory of a creative career. There's going to be times where it's not. I said you don't want it to be the same thing every day, but there's going to be times where it looks different, where the stuff like that, where even if it doesn't feel like that, you're not getting the feedback. The stuff like that is what's actually moving your business forward, and something that I think is going to be really hard for not just me but other people as you grow and scale is having to say no to stuff like that. And for someone like
Mm,
you who's scaled really quickly, after you started, I mean, I know obviously years of hard work and doing stuff that wasn't your ideal life, and then getting there, and then you're at a point where you have a lot of stuff. you have to say no to, like, and doing that in sacrifice of something that may not be as enjoyable in the moment. But when that course comes out, when that book comes out, um, I'm gonna be really excited, to consume it, because we trust you. And now that I know
Thanks.
the stuff that you've gone, and you shared it too, you shared the journey with us of going through the bullshit of Premiere, and then all the small tips and
Yeah.
the stuff behind the scenes. We've all seen it, and then when the course comes out, it's like, man, here it is. Like, this is what you've been building towards. So I know
Yeah.
we're all excited to see it. So
It's all new to me. This kind of thing. I read a book called Launch by Jeff Walker, and it's if you haven't read that and you're thinking about launching something like a digital product, you should definitely check it out. He's like a marketing guru who has made millions selling, online tutorials and boot camps, workshops, that kind of stuff. Uh, this behind the scenes stuff, it's such a self-fulfilling thing because it's a piece of content that I can put out there to kind of generate excitement around the course and build up kind of a bit of momentum to it and drive people to places like newsletter sign up so they can get access to it when it comes out early. But at the same time, for me, it's like a diary of the process, and I'm kind of structuring how to build this course is actually going to all be documented, and so I can go back and repeat this process next time round.
mhm,
It's brilliant. I love doing this, and like you say, it's down and dirty. I just whip my phone out and show what I'm doing at my desk, and all the
mhm,
production software, like the lights that I had to buy, the teleprompter, the camera setup, all of that stuff. It's like lovely and behind the scenes for people, but at the same time, it's a note for me of how to do it and what to do next time around.
mhm. Yeah, I love it, man, because it goes to show that even someone that's successful in doing what they want to do every day, it ain't always sexy. I
You're right.
think maybe the person on camera is, but the process behind it isn't always. Um, but yeah, seeing that is really, like I said, is really encouraging. Um, I'm sorry,
Thanks.
I'm a really giggly person. I'm sorry, but
Sorry.
and I think I know the answer to this, but you said before that consistency is really important in everything you do, especially in, like you even said earlier, with social media. It, as stupid as it can be, sometimes it rewards consistency and it punishes
Yeah.
you for lack thereof. But if you had to, I had a feeling your answer to this would be consistency after I thought I wanted to ask you this, but I'll ask it anyway. Is what's the most common trait, the most valuable trait of, because you've been in the creative industry a while, of, young professionals, people that want to build this ideal day for themselves, like you have, what would be the one trait that you would say is paramount or
For
have?
people in the creative industry, for me, it's the people that don't ever stop learning. Like I've worked with so many designers over the years, and the ones that I've seen do well are the ones that constantly push themselves to learn more, but also share the knowledge at the same time. Like I used to work in a company where we had every Monday or Tuesday morning, I think it was, we had a half-hour knowledge share session. So a team of 5 or 6 of us will go into a room and share something cool that we'd seen that week. It could be anything. It could be like a museum exhibition. It could be a new piece of tech that's just come out. The idea is just to kind of share something cool that week, and it totally built us up as designers and creatives
Mhm,
because we're sort of doing round tables and all learning from each other. And those guys, that I've worked with, they've gone on to huge careers because they give back as much as they take in, and they're just fun people to be around. Honestly, knowledge sharing and sort of striving to learn as much as possible, especially in the design space with new tech coming out every single day. It's one of the reasons why I think I've been successful on social media, is because everything that I learn I share, and I'm basically trying to help other people in this new generation of designers get there a little bit quicker. And then also there's like live streaming as well. We all used to sit next to each other and learn off of other designers, and I learned off my senior design colleagues by sitting next to them and watching them work. In the
mhm,
world of COVID, we can't do that anymore. There's no kind of sitting next to each other in an office, especially as a freelancer. I work alone. The only way that I can learn from other people is by watching other people work, and that comes from places like Adobe Live, people live streaming making posters or doing logos or animating. I can't get enough of that content. It's sitting on an Adobe live stream and watching somebody else work in Adobe Illustrator for an hour and a half. I love it. I love every part of it. Seeing how somebody else does it so that you can improve and help your own efficiency.
Yeah.
That's my bread and butter. I love it.
Yeah, I love that too. Matt Vojak said the exact same thing. He's I kind of mentioned him earlier, but he said he went out west for his first creative job, and he said I would every hour I would get up and I would just go watch someone work. I'd get a glass of water and I just stand behind them. And
creepy.
Yeah, I pushed myself. I was like, dude, I bet you were popular. But that's and I tried to do that, and I did for a week. And
Nice.
I work right now I just got relocated to the warehouse for Black Friday, so I'm doing a lot of non-graphic design work. But yeah, I did that for a week. There's 20 designers on staff. I work at like an apparel design company. It's called Arudis. So we design wrestling apparel, and we do graphic design. We make proofs. We talk with coaches. It's a seasonal role right now, but I'm building up the freelance business on the side, and the goal is what is going to happen is I'm going to be doing that full time in 2025. But
nice, love the deadline.
Yeah, oh yeah. But anyway, like I went up and did that. The people I didn't know, and the lead e-com designer who designs all the emails, all the print graphics, all the social media graphics. His name's Harley. Harley, I'm sorry if you're listening to it, but I went up behind him. I just watched him, and he just looked up at me. I was like, keep going, just like that. And I was like, I know you hate me right now, and I did that every hour for a week, and I met so many new people. Like I have a lot more friends now, and I think especially you can probably relate to this a lot when you're by yourself, you're not in an office. Like I have a chance to be sometimes when I'm not doing boxes like this week, but there's just so many people around you like to learn from. And I grew up, especially in a creative job where you're working on a laptop and stuff. But I grew up super socially isolated. Like like my story is I have hearing aids. I took speech therapy growing up, and I was in my shell a lot of the time because I couldn't really hear what was going on. So that was a big one for me, and it really helped me with my social skills. And I've heard you say before that doing like social media content and scripting out videos makes you a lot more succinct and able to elaborate the ideas in your head. Like when you're talking to clients, like you feel like you sound smarter, and that's something that I thought was really cool too.
That's a big part of graphic design. People don't tell you that, is that you have to be able to justify your own work with clients, and a big part of that is being able to speak with clients on the phone and sell your own services. And that only comes with practice, and doing the social media content and getting on camera helps your business because you're on social media and you plug in your own stuff, but you're getting practice at talking about the industry of graphic design, which totally helps when speaking with clients, and you can just justify your own design decisions and rationalize your own work really quickly. I can't recommend enough getting on camera as soon as possible if you're comfortable with that. And if you're not, give it a shot and write a script, and you can edit it together and look like you are. So you can kind of fake it. But I've done lots of live streams for places like Adobe and designing on camera. And you mentioned standing behind someone and watching them work. Being on the other side of that is quite challenging when there's a few thousand people watching over a live stream, and you do something wrong, or it's a bit boring. One part of the process is quite repetitive. Trying to make it entertaining is quite tricky. So there's a bit of prep that you kind of need to do there. But yeah, you're right. Like there's no substitute for watching how somebody else does something, especially if they're a good teacher and you can learn from them. It's completely invaluable. And the great thing about the live streams is they're all free. It's like a free resource. And they're all recorded as well, so you don't even need to be on there watching them live. You can go back over this treasure trove of just like free learning material. It's fantastic.
Yeah, well, I mean, to your credit, I've watched your live streams, and you actually look like you're super chill, which is
I'm usually bricking it. That's only through preparation. It's the same with the public speaking. If I just went up there and tried to wing it, it would be a car crash. But you know, it looks good because I do the prep and I do my homework. And with those live streams, I have a concept pre-planned and the idea is already in my head. And I may have even done a practice run just to make sure that it's going to work. So it
I
might
heard
look
about,
off the cuff, but yeah, it's not.
I heard you talk about your prep for the Adobe Max speech. I forget, it was a lady's podcast. I can't remember her name, but it was a lady you sat next to.
Christy Campbell.
Yeah.
Her
podcast.
Pink Pony.
And you read books, you planned out the whole framing of the speech, and you executed, man, and it was badass. It was awesome.
Thanks, mate. So, I read a book about public speaking, and the main takeaway from it was just prepare. Like, there's no substitute for being ready and for practicing. If you just go up there on a wing and a prayer, it's going to go badly, and you know it is. So I must have rehearsed it. I recorded myself at least, I'd say, 15 times. And each time I watched it back, every time I made a mistake, I either practiced that bit more or I rewrote the section that was hard to say to make it easier to say. And it was only 15 minutes. So God knows how I'm going to do when I have to do like an hour-long talk. Because it was so much preparation.
Yeah, they're calling you back. You're going to do the whole thing this year.
I hope so.
Yeah, man. But yeah, you killed it. And
thank you.
Congratulations. So
thanks very much.
Yeah, I know we're getting up on an hour, and I know you. What time is it over there? It's in the morning, right?
It's 10 a.m. I'm about to start my day.
Okay. But yeah, man, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you got your course to get back to, and
That's it.
like I said, seeing that behind the scenes of that, and yeah, it's been awesome. Like just chatting, and I've been really looking forward to this, especially with what I've been doing all week. I've been really looking forward to chatting with you and learning from someone I look up to. So I can't thank you enough for your time. But is there any if you could go back and talk to, like, I know this is like a super cliche question, but a lot of the audience is younger people looking for in the creative industry, and if you could go back and tell your creative self one piece of wisdom, what would you say? Put you on the spot.
Bloody hell. I'd probably tell myself where I ended up. So start focusing on logo design right now and get better at it, just to stop wasting time. But like I said before, part of this whole journey has been the journey getting there and actually trying my hand at every single little thing. I probably just give myself a little clue on what I'm good at and, skip a few steps. But yeah, and also just, to get on camera as quickly as possible, because this social proof of doing well on places like TikTok and Instagram has just changed my life. And that, would never have come had I not sort of got on camera that first time. So I guess I'd say practice that a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Like I said, man, I really appreciate your time. I look up to you a lot. I know a lot of the audience does as well. Where can people find you if they're crazy and they don't know where to find you already?
Yeah, my social accounts are at Barnard Co. And my website is barnard.co. So you just head over there. You'll have all the links.
Get back to that course, man. We're excited to see it.
Cheers, buddy. Thanks a lot, Andy.
You do that thing you do with your videos.